I'm S.A. Bradley, and welcome to Hellbent for Horror, a podcast devoted to all things related to horror, where I remind you that you used to love horror movies, and you secretly still do. The biggest special effect that Hollywood ever pulled off was getting everyone to believe that Hollywood was necessary in the first place. For decades, hype machines told you that making art is out of your league, like creating something is only the right of the select few who know the right people and have all the money, and that is an illusion. It may have been true 50 years ago, but not anymore. You can make movies in Detroit and Dayton and Wichita and Middletown and Bloomington and even Wellington, New Zealand. Now, these are locations where micro-budget movies that I've previously discussed were made, and today we're going to add a new location, Titusville, Florida. I love the independent spirit that makes people decide to make a movie, that crazy obsession. Wherever they are, they decide it's time to make that movie. And joining us today, straight out of Titusville, Florida, is producer and director Nick Hunt. Nick is in pre-production for his first feature film, Safe Place. Nick, thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, man, thank you for having me, guy.
Not a problem at all. So let's start the conversation with one of my favorite subjects, obsession, because I really feel that if you're going to do this, you got to be obsessed. And we usually have something that sparks us to get us obsessed, and a lot of times that happens when we're young. I talk about this thing I call the first kiss with horror. It's the first movie that really got under your skin, kind of cemented that you were going to be a horror fan for life, and of course, doesn't mean favorite. It may not even be one that you now think is good, but it hit you at the right time and at that right age to just send you going. So what was your first kiss?
Well, it had to have been a tie with two films that really profoundly affected me, which was, just as a little one, seeing glimpses of Stephen King's It miniseries, as well as seeing Child's Play 2 in the promotional commercials and TV spots that were done for it. Those were two individual things that together scared the absolute bejesus out of me. It was incredibly effective for a young child, and it's very odd now because I have Chucky tattooed on me. That he was the first thing that I was ever really, truly scared of. But, you know, I guess there's irony in it, you know, in confronting what it is that, you know, makes us fear here in the world.
Sure. So you're in Titusville, Florida. That's near Cape Canaveral, or I shouldn't call it Cape Canaveral now. It's now Kennedy Space Center. But you're in that area?
Right over here, about about 45 minutes removed from Orlando. You know, the exciting part of Florida.
Right.
You know, Titusville made famous in The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix.
Mm-hmm. So Florida's also has a very nice pedigree of having horror film directors from there. Herschel Gordon Lewis, of course, probably being the most well-known. But there's also William Grefé, who's known as the king of the Florida exploitation films. You want to talk about having a niche. He was that guy for the drive-in circuit for many, many years. He made a movie called Mako, Jaws of Death, and a few other movies, one called Stanley. He had this thing about making swamp movies, and he's still around, but he's probably in his 80s. And now Dayton, Ohio's own Jim Van Beber now lives somewhere in the Everglades, I think, trying to come up with his next crazy movie. So what is it like where you are right now? What's the horror community like?
Well, you know, I have to say that the film community isn't very strong over here in Florida, just because, you know, it's unfortunately not the state and not the industry state that it used to be back in, let's say, the 90s and the 80s, when you had, you know, for instance, you know, a bunch of the Italian giallo films that were actually filmed over here. But, you know, right now, with our government being the way it is, as far as in our state, there's no real tax incentives for people to film here. And so that unfortunately scares everybody away and makes them go, well, you know, I can go right up to Georgia, where it's the bee's knees for the industry right now. I mean, the people that are here, you know, they're devout, they're strong, it's only as great as being able to spread the fear to the people and, sort of know that, that a project's here locally and, sort of, setting up shop. And, we're really excited about it. We're really excited about utilizing the area. We think it'll be a really exciting and beneficial experience.
Well, that's great. It's funny. I'm in the Bay Area of San Francisco, and people are always like, oh, wow, well, the horror community must be amazing there. And the reality is horror's the redheaded stepchild out here. I could go to a conference every weekend, a convention every weekend, and you could have anything that you can think of, mystery conventions, science fiction conventions, comic book conventions. You can't find a horror convention within 50 miles of San Francisco. So I literally have to travel, too. It's very interesting how that kind of thing goes. But, of course, being a horror fan yourself, it sounds like pretty much a lifelong horror movie fan. Lots of people are that way, and yet they don't make movies. So what compelled you to go from watching them to making them? You probably always wanted to make them, but what made you feel you could pull the cord now and jump in?
I figured I wasn't getting any younger, and it's really about seizing the day. Life is a short and small, condensed experience, but it can be elaborate if you learn to utilize the tools that you have. And I've always been a great promoter. I used to live in New York, and I used to do musical promotion, putting bands and artists in clubs. And accompanied by that, I also used to work heavily in the restaurant industry. And so I was already really accustomed to dealing with people on a regular basis anyway. But when I sort of popped into, the film industry, I very much did that. I implanted myself. I didn't have a whole heck of a lot of connections. I had to come in and make my connections. But it really is a matter of the people are only as good as, the people that he surrounds himself with. And I got to tell you, the people that I've been able to meet throughout this have really been the saving grace for, Safe Place and for, some of my other projects. And, I always loved experimenting with rationale and experimenting with psychology and sociology and learning the whys and whats and who's of why we do the things we do as people. The next general step is looking into fear. Fear is one of the most primordial emotions that exists, and it's so multifaceted that that it is connected to several other, genres itself.
I think it's really interesting that you use the term facets, multifaceted as well. I also believe that one of the most beautiful and most diverse expressions come through the horror film itself. But the facets of horror are quite widespread right now. One of the things that I love about horror right now is that there's no one type of horror movie that's out there that's the only thing that you can see. It's not just zombies. It's not just demons. There's a really rich field out there. Is there one type of horror film right now that speaks to you the most artistically or any other way?
That's something that I was discussing the other evening, is that we really sort of have an advantage now. It's sort of a battle royale, a free-for-all, if you will, with a lot of filmmakers now, because we don't have that trend. We don't have, we're not in Paranormal Activity rage, where everything and anything is a haunted house movie. We're not in torture porn, land. We're not, we don't really have a trend going, and that sort of opens the possibilities up and the floodgates up for all these people who have never made anything before to take these completely original concepts and throw them out there. And I think, more than anything, the follow-ups and the sequels and the prequels and the reboots and the remakes that have come out, and there have been a lot of them that have come out this season and this year. But I will say that I think the standalone efforts are actually a lot better conceived, a lot better executed, and are a lot better in general this year. There's been a few franchise entries that have been incredibly disappointing this season. Whereas there's been a couple, that were incredibly great. Cult of Chucky, I really liked. Creep 2, I really liked. Whereas I very much disliked Jigsaw, and I very much disliked Leatherface.
Is there a horror trend you'd like to see go away?
Well, no. There's not. I would like, in a matter of speaking, not necessarily a horror trend, but a horror trope, which, sort of fits in with what I'm trying to do with Safe Place. It's, we need to learn how to write our people again. It seems as though we can write different plots that are updated. We can set movies in different futures, and we can update the way that we construct our films. But the way that we construct our characters, especially in horror films, is deplorable. We still have the jock as the one-sided jock. We still have the ditzy girl as the ditzy girl. It's unfortunately still constructed that way.
And that's kind of why I brought this up, was because of where you are with your film. You have a film in pre-production right now known as Safe Place. And it's not only in pre-production, it's also your first film, correct? This is going to be the first film that you've directed, soup to nuts.
First Just Like a Baby.
I've heard you describe it as a quote-unquote new slasher. So what does that mean?
New slasher is not making a slasher film that is self-aware. I'm not trying to make a Scream. I'm not trying to make something that parodies the genre. I'm trying to make something that not only gives a positive viewing on the genre as a whole, but only improves upon and highlights the parts that really need to be updated. We no longer, our horror fans are smart. We don't need cars that won't start anymore. We don't need the cell phones that won't work. We don't need all these cliched pitfalls in front of our characters in order to add some existential exposition to the story. We don't need to have fillers. Our story should be filled with, with consistency. And our story should be filled with, constant on the edge of your seat. You shouldn't need to fill it with things that have been done before. It just seems sloppy to me. And so with Safe Place, you're going to see women that are portrayed in a positive light, number one. You're not going to see women that are dumb and falling all over the place and taking off their clothes. Yes, okay, there is a time and there's a place for that. And I agree that in a lot of instances it has worked out. But in this film, we do not need it in order to succeed. We don't need some sort of gimmick in order to pull the audience in. We believe that purely based off an awesome story, characters that you give a damn about, effects that look good, that are 200% practical, and a really gnarly movie in front of the audience, then that will be enough. That we won't need gimmicks and big names and flashy people and naked people, and we don't need all that. We're going to make a great movie, and you aren't going to need any of that.
So you just gave us a little bit of an idea of what the new slasher is, what Safe Place is kind of embodying. What's the plot? Can you give us a little bit of an idea of the plot?
Absolutely. The plot, basically, it centers around 6 students that attend a party in order to celebrate their friend's successful art show opening. Their presence happens to trigger memories of a traumatic event in the host of the party's past, and he resolves to positively impact the course of all of their lives by ending them.
And how he ends them and how they respond to whatever's happening, and the location and the way the setup is where the new slasher comes in, because it sounds like a slasher. So I'm trying to figure out it's all how it's
You're
done.
going to watch this movie, and you're going to initially sit down in front of it, and you're going to think that it's 99% of the other films that you've watched before. And then we're going to throw curveballs into the mix. We're going to do things, and we're going to say things, and we're going to show you things that are going to completely throw you off kilter, that are going to make you so almost illiterate to where you won't know really what to think about it. But I think that's going to work, and it's an advantage. And You know, I mean, I challenge the viewer. This is going to be, you know, it's, make no mistake about it. I'm not going to make some existential, you know, heartfelt movie here. This is going to be violent and dirty and gritty and nasty, but you're going to give a damn about it.
So one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on here is because I know a little bit about the backstory of what's going on. First off, that this is your first film, a fan who has now decided to graduate into the director's chair. But it's also very interesting considering some of the things that I've heard over the years. So, I don't know, about half a year ago, I got to speak briefly with legendary director and producer Roger Corman. And when I say briefly, I mean like really brief. He gave me like 30 seconds at an award show. But, you know, this guy produced 412 movies. He directed 56 of them. He's still doing it on Sci-Fi Channel in his 80s. And he seemed like he'd be the perfect person to ask about the shape of independent film. He was there before the drive-in, during the drive-in, and then after the drive-in. And so I asked him, you know, what's the shape of how things are for the independent filmmaker? And he said making movies is easier because of access to equipment and how portable everything is. But he thought the distribution side, the marketing side, was far worse than when he came up. In other words, you make the movie, now what do you do? It's an old problem. And now with streaming channels, maybe even worse, I'm not sure. But one of the reasons that I thought it was really interesting to talk to you is because you're coming at this from the opposite direction. You've started with a marketing push, and your story is unique that you haven't shot one frame of film.
No,
right?
I have not.
Yeah. But you already have international distribution with Terror Films.
You know, I'm going to go right back to the statement again. A person is only as strong as the other individuals that he surrounds himself with. I have been incredibly lucky to have made an impression on the right people, and the right people believe in the Safe Place, and they believe in my cast that I've built. They believe that regardless of the fact that I have no business school, film school experience, I haven't even graduated college. Despite all this, I, by myself, have done, even now, up until this point, done organically every single amount of the marketing and public relations work. And I've been able to bring this thing and make it one of the fastest growing brands in independent horror currently. And, you know, I told myself, you know, Scott, when I got into this business, that I wasn't going to settle for something, you know, that I didn't believe that I deserved. I wasn't going to come into this business and start out by making backyard VHS films. No, and believe me, I respect wholeheartedly, and I'm not shitting on anybody that really, quite honestly, you know, wants to be able to, you know, start out like that. You know, valiantly, however you do it, go out and do it. You know, there's people that make great things every day, but that's just not me. I told myself, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to make a mark. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to take over. I'm going to go and I'm going to get on the biggest news sites, and I'm going to go on the biggest podcasts. I'm going to promote the hell out of this thing, and I'm going to build myself a presence before we even shoot the movie, so people know who I am. So when that last shot of the day, when the slate comes closing for the last time on the last shot of Safe Place, then everybody knows it's coming. And it's just a matter of time before it'll be available to the public. And I've promised a lot of things. But, you know, what I've told people consistently, again, is that I really haven't done anything. I'm a guy who can talk a really good game. And I've done incredibly well and met incredible people that I have involved with Safe Place and with some of my other projects. You know, but I still have to show everybody. I still have to prove to you guys that I am what I say. And that Safe Place is what I say it is. And I just look forward for that day.
And Terror Films, I mean, they did the Pet Cemetery documentary, Unearthed and Untold. I think they also did Hell House LLC. These are kind of prestigious. They've gotten some good reviews. So it's not as if this is just something, you know, very, very tiny.
Of course, Night of Something Strange and Patient 7. You know, a lot of great independent horror films as well.
What makes it international distribution? Is it the streaming services, or is there other outlets that they're using?
Well, right now, it's set to be available on formats like Netflix, Xbox Live, iTunes, possibly, actually not Redbox, so don't quote me on that. But there's going to be a plethora of different online and video-on-demand platforms that are going to offer it. And, we're also negotiating with the physical side with some other companies that are going to take this thing for, the Blu-ray and the DVD side of things, But we're looking forward to it. There's a lot of really, really big things that I can't even talk about, quite honestly, with this place that are coming that'll bring this to a much grander scale.
No, this is fascinating to me because it truly feels like a brave new world. Normally when I would talk to people about films or when I tried to make something back in the 90s, it's always, well, you got so far with the film, and then you have to go to film festivals. You got to beg and try and find people interested in a distribution deal for you. And here you are getting this kind of thing sight unseen because nothing is there to see except for a teaser trailer that you created, and they have really gone for this, which is really interesting to me. It's like marketing. It is like the upside down in Stranger Things. You've got this thing where you're coming from back.
Quite honestly, Scott. In the past, I have a very unconventional way that I market. I'm a very blunt person. I don't believe that anybody is off limits. There's been a lot of people that I have talked to through the casting process of this film that you would not even believe, that the public wouldn't even believe. I've mentioned some names in some other podcasts before, and it's incredible to me because there's people that have approached me, Nick, how did you do this? How did you get this person? This person was in, one of the biggest, independent movies of last year. This person's an Emmy-winning actor. How did you get them? Because they like the project and they like me. That's all I can say is, they enjoy me. They see what I try and do for the horror community. They see what I'm trying to do and that I'm trying to be out of the norm. I want to take myself and I want to be the complete opposite of the carbon copy and the cliches that you hear about evil producers and evil directors. No, I want to be understanding. I want to be there for the people that are on my team. I want to be there, and I want to be able to let people know that the unachievable is achievable, that I am absolutely no better and no bigger, no richer. I don't have, I still struggle to eat sometimes. I still struggle to, get toiletries every once in a while. There's struggle, but I know at the end of the day that there's people out there that believe in this and believe in me, and it's all because of you guys.
So you mentioned marketing, and obviously you feel that that's a pretty strong point for yourself. You created a marketing campaign on social media for over 2 years now, correct?
Through just getting on different movie news websites, through getting my cast and crew on various podcasts, radio shows, and talk shows. My teaser trailer at almost 40,000 views over the past 150 days. And then I also do something that's very unique, which is every couple weeks I do what's called the Artist Spotlight, where I feature an in-depth interview with one of either my cast members or my people behind the camera, so that every single one of the audience members can get to know the cast and crew before they even get to see the film.
It's very interesting because I believe you had mentioned on another podcast that your Facebook page has an organic reach of over 70,000 people. And one of the big questions that I thought of is, things change so fast with technology and ideas, and, the temperature of the country can change in a 2-year period. How do you sustain people's interest over 2 years?
Consistency and passion and being real with people. I'm going to be perfectly honest. There's been a lot of people who have criticized me about being open and about being honest and about being forthright and about announcing things and about being real and being impersonal with people. I believe in the truth. I believe that too often people conceal things from people and don't give them the entirety of the picture. And how are we to believe in a brand? How are we to have a mutual respect for our brand? How are we to put money as a consumer, as a customer, into a brand if we know nothing about it? But if we know, but if you go into Safe Place, getting to know these people that are being put in jeopardy, if you go into their feeling in your bones, in your veins, that these people are close to you, that you know them, you know about their family and how they feel about them being in the industry. You know about the first movie that they watched when they grew up. You know about their children and their families. And so it affects you. It becomes familiar to you. I do this to create a sense of openness and intimacy with the consumer and with the fan, so they can know that I am here specifically for them, to create something that is for the fans and by the fans.
So that's really interesting, especially what I heard that really struck a chord was that you have these vignettes that I guess you put on your website. Is it an Indiegogo website where your cast and crew give a little bit of a background on themselves or what they're doing in the film? Is that on a website like that?
Yeah, I mean that kind of stuff has worked out exponentially well. It's getting people to know us. I don't have any credibility. I have not done a film in this industry, so I have to make a mark another way, and it's by being loud and crass and meeting people and going out there and fighting for this thing.
What does your crew look like? How many people do you have that's like really connected and concrete for your crew that they're going to be wanting to get on video for 2 years talking about this movie?
Well, it's the best people, the people that have stuck with me and the people that have stuck with Safe Place, as well as other projects that I've been undertaking. They know and they believe, just like the people, in the payoff, in the ultimate payoff. They believe in my passion, and they believe in the fact that I've shown that I know at least how to make a mark in this business. I know how to make a voice, and I know how to put my foot down in this business, and that I've shown people that I'm not going anywhere. I can't really say, how many people are really in my core crew. I want to say that there's thousands in my core crew. Quite literally in all sorts of people. Like I said, this is no joke. You are my 96th podcast, talk show, radio show, what have you, that I've ever been on. And I've been in Ireland. I've been in the UK. I've been in Australia. I mean, all over the U.S. I mean, it's incredible. And it's only because of you guys. There's no other reasoning behind it. I'm not rich. I don't have connections. I'm not a Kardashian.
There's a huge amount of anticipation that's built right into this, and it seems like that anticipation is kind of what keeps things going. I mean, you, once again, not to belabor a point, but you're a first-time filmmaker. Not only do you have international distribution, but you also have, 11 characters cast in the film already?
Yes.
And most of them are actors with multiple indie film credits already. Do you want to talk about a few of these people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my cast is the backbone of this thing. I've been praised with my number one unconventional matter of casting, as well as the people I've selected, just because I've sort of assembled a really cool team here of people from some of the biggest indie horror films and indie films over the past 5 years or so, and a lot of awesome up-and-comers as well.
You talk about unconventional ways of getting cast. So what's unconventional? How are you finding these people, or what's the unconventional part of it?
I don't do the traditional audition process. I don't do a traditional casting process. I tend to go a lot by word of mouth. I tend to go a lot by judging off of performances that I see from a third party, as opposed to having somebody perform like an animal for me. I feel that the one of the things that I want to change, sort of, and yes, in some instances it can work, but one of the things that I want to change as far as how I do things in this industry is that, to me, the audition process is so judgmental, and it's so confined, and it's so nerve-wracking. And I consistently hear this from so many talents all over the world. And so I like to eliminate that. Instead of giving people instruction, I want you to perform this for me. No, I want you to find something that you believe I need to see. Then you come to me with having just put your all into it, and then I feel I can get the best performance from you. If I give people limitations, if I give people, roadblocks, then I'm never going to get the full potential from them.
Right. So you have people like Ashley Mary Nunez, who has quite a few credits under her belt. How did you get involved with her?
Oh, man. Ashley is the greatest. I ended up consistently for months and months and months on social media hearing about this little film called All Through the House that her brother Todd Nunez was directing and writing. And I kept seeing things for it and kept seeing the feedback in it. And that's sort of, that's one of the things that I look for, is I look for what's new, what's interesting, what people are interested in. Again, word of mouth. It's a very powerful thing, and it's consistently been a very powerful thing in this business. It's one of the few things that doesn't change. It was very blunt. I ended up finding out how to approach her, and I approached her and told her, hey, I have this project. It's the lead in this little film, Safe Place, but I want to let you know that this is going to be a very smart character. That it's not going to be very cookie cutter. It's not going to be the final girl that you normally see. But I do want there is a lot of inspiration from a lot of classic final girls in her. But she's very strong and very, very strong-willed, and she exuded it. Man, she's a mother, and she showed that she can be a great final girl already, and I have all the confidence in the world that she is going to pull off Lori without a bang. I mean, she's already shown what she can do as Lori.
So you have some people on this film that have already pretty much committed to it, that are veterans. They've been around the block more than once. You have Bill Oberst Jr., and now he has 166 credits, including TV for Criminal Minds, and he not only has that, but he has 13 projects right now that are confirmed or in pre-production just for 2018. We're not even done with 2017 yet. So how do you keep someone whose calendar fills up so quickly excited in your project?
Well, Bill is an amazing guy, and me and him consistently talked, on social media for a great period. And I was a very vocal supporter of him, a very big supporter of his projects. As much as the horror community knows that I'm a very big supporter, a very big sharer, et cetera, et cetera. So a situation ended up coming up to where one of my actors had to move out of area and could not commit to the project. So I decided, I could see nobody else playing this role at this opportune time except for Bill Oberst. And my fiance had already fallen in love with him from Circus of the Dead, playing Papa Corn. And it was sort of a no-brainer for me. And so I approached him, and he felt very, he was very happy, and it was amazing. Man, he's such a great guy, and he's gonna, he's bringing Safe Place to a whole new level,
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned a couple times that people know how good you are with the horror community. How active are you? In other words, how do people know you enough to be interested in your movie and to support it so much?
Well, because generally, when I'm on social media, I make sure to do the dual tasking of not only promoting myself, but promoting other people. I consistently, I look at who has popular projects that are out, so that are coming out, that are in post-production, that are in pre-production, and I'm there for them. If they need cast, I'm out there sharing their casting notices. I'm out there recommending people, actors that I've met from, all over the world. If it's, if they're looking to get some media coverage on a podcast or a website, I find somebody that they can be reached out to, because I've been fortunate enough to have had the opportunity to be on 96 of them. I make sure to scratch the backs of people all around the place, so that, I can show that I'm there, and that I can show that, I'm sort of there to lend a helping hand as well. And that's really, sort of what has worked for me. Just sort of finding that happy medium. And, when I do promote people, people generally know that I give them the floor to, frequently I'll make posts where people can post for IMDb's, or, strictly post their trailers from their projects, or, actors, they can post their resumes or their reels, and so many people have Facebook and social media. Mm-hmm. You never know who could be, realistically looking at the right thing at the right time, and so that's what I always tell people, and that's what's worked for me.
Because you've gotten some interesting people to work with you as well, just in your writers. Preston Fassel does Rue Morgue. He writes Rue Morgue. Penny Sublime, I know from Cinedump. And also now on Joe Blow Arrow in the Head. So you've gotten involved with them. Was that through talking to them about their writing, movies? How did they get involved with your project?
Well, I wrote the original version of Safe Place. That was very much unlike the version that's out there now. And it was a very long time ago. And so I knew that it needed a modern reinterpretation. So I went writer to writer, and the first set of writers that I had, it was more like a cliched slasher film. There wasn't anything new to it, nothing original. It was completely plain and very cliche. Then the second version of the script that I had was incredibly old-fashioned, and it was way apart from what I wanted to execute to the public. And so I knew that I needed to find a really good median between the two. That, I needed something that was vicious, but, something people cared about. And so I came across review after review after review for this book that's basically a slasher in a way, called The Our Lady of Our Inferno. And I continuously heard these great things, and I have followed Preston through the various websites that he and Penny worked for. And I like their style and their approach to things, especially, just, general editorials and not news pieces, what have you. But there was something that was very intriguing to me, and I thought that they could execute the project.
Now, I've noticed on your Indiegogo that you have some very interesting giveaways for different levels if people do decide to donate and support the movie. Can you talk about a little bit of that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when the Indiegogo was around, there was, everything from on-set props to Blu-rays, DVDs, posters, Skype sessions with the cast. There were so many great things that people could have taken advantage of.
I thought that was very interesting. Once again, the dedication of people actually, I'll have lunch with somebody because they gave some money to a movie that we have not yet made. It just says something about anticipation and promise that is really interesting to me. Have you secured all your funding yet?
Yeah, can't talk too much about it, but, Safe Place's future is financially secure. There's without a shadow of a doubt that it's coming to everybody. sooner or later than think. We have a tendency to surprise people.
So I know just making my podcast and creating and scheduling marketing tweets and collecting teaser media, all of that is just a hell of a lot of work. What does your workload look like? Do you sleep?
Oh yeah. Well, sometimes. I like to think that I sleep more than I do. But right now, besides Safe Place, and also planning the other parts of Safe Place, because Safe Place is not confined to a single film, and I won't say too much other than that. But I'm also working on an anthology horror film that I've announced some really incredible people, who are joining me to film some of the segments in the anthology. Some of the biggest horror filmmakers from all around the world, including Todd Nunez from All Through the House, Javier Ottridge from Wakuf, The Origin of Evil, and then Billy Pond from Circus of the Dead. Besides myself, who's also directing a segment, but I'm not near as popular as they are yet. But I'm also looking at doing a documentary film on the 25th anniversary of a film that is a pretty famous horror film, but I can't say too much about that. And then I'm also executing an entire project from here in Central Florida over in the West Coast in California. That is a nonprofit short drama project, a little bit out of the horror atmosphere, but it's going to basically encourage people to speak out against sexual assault.
Mm. Excellent. Well, thank you for giving me all of that information. We spent quite a bit of time talking the nuts and bolts of movie making as it stands in 2017, at least from your purview. Let's take some time to just talk about some of the fun of it all. What's your favorite part of the creative process?
Let's see. The favorite part, the first inception of the ideas. Once you get that initial storyline in your head, once you see that first scene, once those beginning or ending credits roll through your head to where you can visualize them, that's the moment. Once it's real to you, as a very devout movie fan, to see the title card for Safe Place, very ominously coming onto the screen and barreling through it like this massive animal. And then that music hitting. To me, that's I got chills. One of the best things in the world. To have your project, professional, there's no Windows Movie Maker animation with the font there,
Mm-hmm. What is it about horror that makes you respond so strongly to it?
I think it's how people respond to horror itself that intrigues me. How the physiological effects, the physical effects, the metaphysical effects. People respond to horror in some really incredible ways. And, it's so sad that, there used to be movies where in the direct marketing of the film, they used to be able to utilize some of these tactics that would just mess with the viewer, like the Tingler, that in select theaters that would install the shock device in the theater seats. That kind of stuff is ingenious, and is far too seldom used today. People don't generally take the time and the consideration to market their film and to build the presence that I have. I feel like, there's so many movies, look what already is slated to come out next year. We already have, the direct sequel to John Carpenter's Halloween, with Jamie Lee Curtis returning. That's already going to be big enough to compete with, much less any of the other, couple hundred films that are horror related that are going to come out between, then or now and next October. But there's a lot of competition out there. And so you have to set yourself apart. And if you don't have a finished product, there's not a whole lot of other ways to do that than by incessantly, showing people that Safe Place is not going anywhere, and that it is this beast that's just growing and growing and growing, and that it's coming, and it's just gonna, pop out one day.
So horror movies, as we mentioned before, they have a whole bunch of different shapes and sizes and even tones right now. I want to talk about, since I'm talking to a movie lover, the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And since I'm talking to a movie lover who is working in a lower budget, knows a lot of people probably that are on the festival circuit. I wanted to split this up a little bit because whenever people give like a top 5, they have to compete with a whole bunch of different things. So in the last 5 years, what were your favorite horror films that were micro-budget or movies that played in festivals only?
Oh, man. I have to say, top of the list would be Circus of the Dead. By Billy Pond. No bias for my upcoming anthology whatsoever. But the grittiness, and the nastiness of that movie is what is really pleasing aesthetically of it. It is a very, very unconventional film that a lot of people really won't get. And a lot of people didn't. A lot of people did not understand this film, but a lot of people loved it. And it has built a very, very devout fan base. And I mean, the performances in it were executed perfectly. And just some star-making stuff right there. Another one would be a movie straight out of Istanbul called Baskin.
Oh, yes. Love Baskin.
Yes.
I've triumphed that film a lot.
It to me was like I was trying to think. It was like Lord of Illusions meets Hellraiser, but with something else, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But it was just, the way that it was, the set design, the cinematography, the actors, the locations. It really was an absolutely beautifully dark film, tantamount to some of the classic 70s Hammer films. It was just so beautiful. And then let's see, I would have to say one recently that really had a mark on me was Better Watch Out. That came out a couple months ago. And it's basically a home invasion movie mixed with Home Alone, mixed with a revenge film. It's very multifaceted. It's a movie that, again, you're gonna go into it, and the plot's gonna take you into one direction, and then it's just gonna surprise you and take you into a complete left field. And it's easily one of the most brutal films that I've seen this year, and 95% of the cast is under the age of 21. Wow. I think only Virginia Madsen and Patrick Warburton are the only adult characters in it at all. And then the rest is under 8, I would actually venture to say under 18. The number 4 would have to be All Through the House. I'm a sucker for a Killer Santa movie. Anytime there's a Killer Santa movie, I love it. I love the sort of median between good and evil with a Killer Santa. I think it makes good for good horror. And, I think it works in a plethora of different settings. I don't think you're going to see the Killer Santa genre go away anytime soon, which I'm totally okay with. And then I guess I would say the last one, it's a toughie, because there are some really, really good ones out there. If I had to say one, it would have to be Starry Eyes.
I love Starry Eyes.
Starry Eyes has, the drama project that I'm actually working with in California. I have the pleasure of working with Maria Olsen, who worked on Starry Eyes. She was one of the producers in the film, playing one of the casting producers. And then she's also been in Percy Jackson and the Olympians and Paranormal Activity 3, and just such a talented woman. And I mean, Alex Esso, one of my favorites. I had actually had the opportunity to, scheduling conflicts got in the way, but she at one point was talking to us about Safe Place. So, who knows, maybe if there's more Safe Place, maybe she can get involved. But I mean, just overall, a very visceral, creepy, just, weird, I like mind screw movies. I like movies that mess with you, like The Game, that kind of stuff.
Esso is spectacular. I thought she should have gotten an award, any award. Give her an award for that.
Oh, I know, and I mean, most people don't know that she's a Saudi Arabian actress, which I think even makes her better. Just because, I mean, she's just so exotic, and you don't see a lot of people really being given opportunities. And really succeeding in that area over there. And so it's really awesome. She's just, I mean, such a likable person. And actually, the drama project as well, I'm working, her brother is actually working with me on it.
That's interesting. So you mentioned scheduling, by the way. Do you have a start date of production?
For Safe Place?
Yes.
Well, Safe Place is going to, be in production probably around towards the beginning of the first quarter here of the next year, the last part of the first quarter. Very, very confusing. I have a little bit of dyslexia, so my apologies. But yeah, I mean, like I said, we tend to pop out when you least expect it, so it could be a lot sooner than that, could be a little bit later, but we are coming, without a shadow of a doubt.
If all things were equal, what recent horror film would you have loved to direct, and what changes would you have made? There's a chance to remake a movie that should have been good and wasn't.
And it's recent?
Yeah, we can have it be recent.
Jigsaw.
Jigsaw, okay.
Jigsaw. Have you seen the new Jigsaw, first off?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't interested.
So it'll be a spoiler-free counterpoint here. Okay, so the direction that I thought they were at least going with the Saw franchise when I heard that they were resurrecting it, they sort of over the last few sequels they took away from the humanity of the idea behind Saw. Instead of people being put in positions to where they were given the opportunity to live, a lot of the times they were put in positions to where they never had a chance of living. And generally, instead of being these elaborate, multifaceted films, they ended up being these pseudo-revenge films after the first or second film. And I would have really wanted to sort of receive a return back to the original formula and sort of making feeling and humanity behind it, and seeing people actually want to fight for their lives. Like I said, I just think it sort of lost its edge. And then the direction that I would have gone is that essentially that the John Kramer that everybody thinks was John Kramer was not John Kramer. Essentially, I would have gone that John Kramer never died, that wasn't John Kramer who died, and who was operated on, and his scalp taken off of, and all that good stuff. So that's how I figured that's how I would have written the continuance of the franchise. But that's just me. There's more sort of modern, or there's more sort of classic movies now that I would tackle. But that's for another day.
What would be the dream one?
Dream one. Oh. I would love to make a Friday the 13th film. I would, sort of the same thing I was saying with the other film. I would really keep to its original formula. I think the success is in the subtlety. I think when you overcomplicate an idea like Friday the 13th or like Halloween or Texas Chainsaw Massacre and you try and make it something a lot more complicated than it is, then that's when you lose your fans. And that's when you lose the money. When you try and go off into left field. I would make a Friday the 13th movie exactly how a Friday the 13th movie should be. It should be set in Camp Crystal Lake under some circumstances that it reopens or people happen across it and a bunch of people are making poor decisions in which they die and are being stalked by Jason. I will say that there was a fan film that came out on Halloween that was called Never Hike Again. And it was expertly done. And it was found footage. And I was very skeptical about the idea of a Friday the 13th film being found footage, but I would actually take a chance on that idea. I think it would work well for it. And yeah, I mean, who wouldn't love to again, I have Jason tattooed on me. So who wouldn't love to tackle Jason in one way, shape, or form? You know,
of course.
Well, I would love to bring Tommy Jarvis back, as everybody else would.
Right. Well, Nick, thanks so much for coming on the show. And what I want to do is take some time here to promote Safe Place. And so tell us a little bit more about Safe Place and anything else you've got coming and where listeners can find you.
Well, you can follow all the progress of Safe Place as well as get to know our cast, our crew, look up, any of my past interviews, or my cast's past interviews, or look at the teaser trailer, just a whole bunch of stuff by simply going to facebook.com/SafePlaceTheMovie. We do not have a Twitter at this time as we are building a new one, but, we're going to be, soon coming to Instagram as well as we're going to have some new and exciting stuff coming on Facebook for the fans to interact with. You can also, if you happen to look me up personally, then you can get to know a little bit about Wonder Tales, which is the anthology that I'm doing, and Speakeasy, the short drama that I'm doing, and all the other projects that I'm executing over the next year or so.
Excellent. And once again, thank you very much, Nick. That is Nick Hunt, the producer and director of the upcoming film Safe Place. And to everyone out there listening, thanks so much for taking the time. And remember, the indie spirit is everywhere, and it can possess you at any time. So get out there and go be creative.
And thanks for listening to the show. Hellbent for Horror was written and broadcast by me, S.A. Bradley, and produced by me and Lisa Gorski. You can find more on our website, hellbentforhorror.com, and I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/Hellbent for Horror, and my Twitter handle is Hellbent Horror. You can find Hellbent for Horror on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, and other podcast platforms. And H4H has its own app. You can download it from the Google or Amazon store for Android, and the iPhone version is available on the iTunes store. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, stay hell-bent.